All right. Hello, everyone. Time for another game of Marvel Champions. It's been a few days since the last time I was able to do one of these. Um, our next matchup, our hero is going to be Groot. Groot is obviously a Guardian character, and his whole thing is that he's going to be building up and using growth counters. So on his alter ego side, he has an action where he can just gain 2 growth counters to a maximum of 10. Then on his hero side, he can use those growth counters, and one of the ways he can use them is when he would take any amount of damage, he can remove that many growth counters to prevent damage. And this is one of the abilities that is a forced interrupt. So if he were going to take any damage, he has to do it. So if he is about to take any damage, he has to remove counters equal to the number of damage he would take. He can't choose to take the damage and keep the counters. So there's that, and then he'll have a bunch of cards in his deck that are going to use the growth counters as well. So he'll have ways to spend them or do bigger attacks or bigger thwarts or things like that, depending on how many he has. He is a protection character, so he's going to have a lot of these green protection cards. So my starting hand, I got a Fruition, which is an action that can give me 2 more growth counters. I got Entangling Vines, which is an upgrade where I can remove a growth counter from Groot when I thwart to make that thwart +2. I got Not Today. I got 2 of those. It says when your hero defends against an attack, it gets +2. If you take no damage, remove 2 threat from a scheme. I got Shake It Off, which says after a Guardian character takes any amount of damage from an attack, give that character a tough status card. And then I got Unflappable. After you defend against an attack and take no damage, exhaust Unflappable to draw a card. Okay, so obviously I'm going to want to be defending quite a bit. Groot is a really good multiplayer character because he can take a lot of damage and he can defend quite a bit because he's able to like ready himself and defend more than once. So he's really good as a multiplayer character to be a really good protection character for other players, which makes sense thematically for Groot. That does mean that he's a little less good as a solo character, but he can work if you get the right setup going for him. But as a solo character, he's a little less useful than he is in multiplayer. The villain that we're going to be going against today is Loki. And Loki is one of the more difficult villains that they've put out. So what he's going to do is he's the trickster god, obviously. So what he has is instead of having a villain deck with a couple different stages that you have to go through, what he has is he has multiple different versions of himself. And at the beginning of the game, you randomly pick one to be your starting one. And then throughout the game, he can swap in these different versions of himself randomly. So if it ever tells me to swap in a new version of Loki, I just pick one of these randomly and then swap them out. Nothing changes really other than his stats, his scheme and attack, and then his keywords and abilities on his text here will change. So for this particular one that I started with, he has piercing. So it says Loki's attacks gain piercing. And then on this one, for example, it says Loki cannot take damage while a side scheme is in play. This one is he has stalwart. So the abilities on his different versions change, and then his scheme and attack values change a little bit. But when you swap them in and out, nothing else changes. So attachments that he has stays in play. His hit points stay the same. All that kind of stuff stays. The only thing that changes is just the card that you swap in and out. In the rules for this scenario, they have different difficulty levels that you can choose. And those difficulty levels are essentially how many different versions of Loki you have to defeat in order to win the game. Because when you swap him in and out, the card that you swap out just goes into the stack of other versions, and that version can come back if he swaps. But if you defeat one of the versions, so if you knock, for example, if I knock this version down to 0 health, Each of them have the victory keyword on them, so they're removed from play and set aside in the victory area. So they cannot be one of the versions that can come back in when you defeat them. So if you're playing on the standard difficulty, they recommend that you defeat 2 different versions of Loki to make it seem similar to one of the other scenarios where you're normally defeating a villain's stage 1 and then they go to stage 2 and you have to defeat them a second time. However, since I'm playing solo and I'm playing Groot solo and Loki is already a fairly difficult scenario and I don't want the video to take 2 hours, I am going to just play on the easier difficulty that they have in there, and I'm going to just defeat one version of Loki to win. Maybe that'll be too easy and it'll only take me 20 minutes to win. I doubt it. I might still lose anyway, but just for the sake of ease, I'm mostly just doing these videos just to play against villains I haven't played in a while and to show off all the different villains and heroes that are in the game. I'm not here to be the most amazing player of Marvel Champions that's ever existed. I'm just here to do what I can. And then also I'm playing on an easier difficulty because I also am continuing my trend of if the scenario calls for certain modular encounter sets and you can swap them out, I'm swapping them out and going in alphabetical order. And the 2 that are next in alphabetical order are the 2 that I need to use. Normally he uses Frost Giants and Enchantress are the 2 that he uses. But the 2 that are next in alphabetical order are Fantasy, which is a bunch of fantasy trope characters like goblins and things like that. That came in the Mojo expansion. And then the next one, the second one that I'm using, is the Flight modular encounter set, which is only 4 cards, or 5 cards technically, but one of those 5 cards doesn't go into the deck. It is a permanent card that he just has at the beginning of the game. So at the beginning of the game, he gains this flight attachment. He can't lose it, and it gives him aerial, and all of his attacks have overkill. So if I have any allies in play, and if they block for me, any leftover damage will go to me. And it also gives him +1 attack. And in addition to that, as a normal part of the Loki scenario, he always has this. He has the Infinity Gauntlet, which gives him +1 to both of his stats. And when you have the Infinity Gauntlet, that villain also gets to use the Infinity Stones. And the way the Infinity Stones work is at the beginning of the game, you reveal 1. So there's 1 in play. There are ways that you might end up with more than 1 in play at the same time, but usually it's just 1. Then, when the villain activates, either stuns or either activates against you with an attack or a scheme, either one, they resolve the stone and then discard it. If they don't have a stone in play because the last time they activated, they did one and then discarded it, instead of doing a new one and discarding it, you just flip over the next one and then that'll be the one they use on their next activation. So usually it's every other activation that you get a stone. So the first time he activates, he'll use this one and then it'll get discarded. And then the next time he activates, he'll just reveal one. He won't have one to use unless he gets some other way of revealing it. There are some cards and stuff in the deck that can cause that to happen. And these are also bad. And these are in the scenario no matter what modular sets you're using. When you're playing against Loki, you have to give him the Infinity Gauntlet and the stones. So I'm making this scenario even harder than it already is with the 2 modular sets that I put in. This scenario is hard enough as it is. I'm playing a character that isn't super great for this scenario. And so I'm just going to try to make my life a little easier and make the game a little shorter. And so I'm just going to try to defeat one version of Loki. If I defeat one version of Loki, we'll count it as a win. If I don't, it'll be a loss, obviously. Okay, so right now, at the beginning of the game, we have 1 main scheme, and if that is completed, we just lose. So there's only 1 main scheme, and if he hits 12 on that main scheme, we just lose. And then we have a side scheme that's called War in Asgard, and it has an acceleration icon on it, which will make the main scheme go faster. And then when we defeat it, we will have to reveal the top card of the Infinity Stone deck and swap Loki with a new version. But we're going to want to get rid of that because we're not going to want the main scheme to go even faster than it already is. Groot is unfortunately not the best threat removal character in the world. He's more of an attacking and defending character, but we'll do what we can. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use Groot's alter ego ability to give him 2 growth counters. And then I don't think I have anything in my hand. This action I can do in alter ego or hero form, so it doesn't matter. So I'll just go ahead and discard that and do it. So I'll be up to a total of 4 counters, 2 from this ability and then 2 from his card. So I have 4 counters now total. Okay, so then I think I for sure want to play this unflappable card because that's really good. So I think I'm going to spend 1 not today to play unflappable. So the next time I defend and take no damage, I will get to exhaust it and draw a card. So every time I defend and take no damage, I will get to draw a card. Well, not every time, once per round when I defend and take no damage. And then since I know I'm going to need to thwart quite a bit, I am going to go ahead and play this Entangling Vines because this is one where I can make his thwart better. So I'm going to go ahead and play that, and I need to discard one of these 2 cards. So I'm either going to keep Not Today or Shake It Off. Not Today gives me +2 defense and removes threat. So I think that's the one I've got to do. So I'm going to keep Not Today. I'm going to discard Shake It Off to pay for Entangling Vines. And then I'm going to do Groot's basic thwart of 1. Plus, when Groot makes a basic thwart, remove 1 growth counter from him and exhaust Entangling Vines to give him +2. So I can thwart for 3. So I will do that on the side scheme here. Take 6 off, put 3 back. And then that is going to be his whole turn. So then we will ready all of our cards. And I'm keeping Not Today, and I'm going to draw 4 cards to get back up to 5. Okay, so I got a Vine Spikes. When Groot makes a basic attack, remove a growth counter to give him +2. So it's the same thing as Entangling Vines, but for attack. Indomitable, after your hero defends, doesn't matter if they take damage or not, just if they defend, discard this to ready them. So this is a way he could defend twice or just be readied after he defends, which normally you're not. I got another Not Today, so I've got 2 of those. And then I got Flora and Fauna, which is his team-up card with Rocket. So again, we've seen a few of these over the last few games where in order to play this, both Groot and Rocket need to be in play. So I will need to find Rocket's ally in this case and play him in order for this card to be playable. So most likely this will end up just being a resource card. Okay, so then Loki at the beginning of his turn is going to get 1/2 threat on the main scheme because of the acceleration icon on Warren Asgard. And then he is going to attack me for 2, 3 from the Infinity Gauntlet, 4 from Flight. And so it's 4 plus a boost card. So I am going to defend it. And Groot's defense is 3, but in this case it's kind of technically 6 since I have those 3 growth counters. So I'm defending for 3, and then any leftover damage would be soaked by those growth counters unless he does enough to also get rid of those and still have leftover damage. So then I'm also going to use this Flora and Fauna as a resource to play Not Today. When your hero defends against an attack, it gets +2. And if you take no damage from that attack, remove 2 threat from a scheme. So I'm going to defend for 5. And if he still does more than 5, I'll then get to remove growth counters. And we'll see what happens. So I'm defending for 5. He's attacking for 2, 3, 4, plus a card. There are 4. This is another reason. See, this is why I made the game easier, because of this fantasy set. The dragon in this fantasy set has 4 boost icons. Normally the maximum is 3, and this one has 4. So he's attacking me for 8. I defended for 5, so there's still 3 left. And so I still have to remove all 3 growth counters to take no damage. Then if you take no damage from that attack, remove 2 threat from a scheme. So I'm going to remove them from War in Asgard. And then I also can, after you defend against an attack and take no damage, exhaust Unflappable to draw a card. I got We Are Groot. Remove up to 4 growth counters from Groot and choose that many friendly characters. Give each of those characters a tough status card. Okay. So that was Loki's attack. And then the last thing he's going to do is give me an encounter card, which is the Villain Schemes. Okay, so he's going to scheme for 1, 2 from the power. Oh, shoot. After he activated against me, we should have triggered the Power Stone. So I am stunned, and then we discard it. Okay, so he's going to give me a stun card. I forgot to grab those, so let me pause for a second. Okay, so I've grabbed those stun cards. Groot is stunned. I'm going to take the Power Stone, and I'm just going to put it on the bottom of the Infinity Stone deck for now as the discard pile, just to save some space here. And then he needs to actually do his scheme. So he pulled Advance as my encounter card for the round, so now I need to scheme for 1+1 for the Infinity Gauntlet. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is how much he's scheming for. So he's up to 7 on there. And then after he activates, either resolve the special ability of each Infinity Stone in play or put the top card of the Infinity Stone deck into play. So now we get to pull the next one, which is the Mind Stone. So the next time he activates me against me, he's going to confuse me. Okay. All right, so then I will. This is the problem with Groot, is that when he has no growth counters, he's useless for the most part, but they make you use his growth counters. So like in that case, I would have much rather just taken 3 damage than lose those 3 growth counters, because even though the Not Today, since I took no damage, the Not Today removed 2 threat, and since I took no damage, the Unflappable let me draw a card. That's all great, but I can't do anything now because I don't have any growth counters. So this card is remove growth counter to make his attack better. This card is remove growth counters to give him a tough card. My Entangling Vines is remove growth counter to make his thwart better. Like, I can't do anything without the growth counters. So the fact that it's a forced interrupt to get rid of those growth counters is kind of frustrating. I understand what they were trying to do, but it just is kind of frustrating. It makes you have to flip to alter ego form a lot more and get growth counters that way. But right now, if I flip to alter ego form, I'm just going to lose because he's already at 7 of 12 threat that he is required to get in order to make that scheme end. And he's going to get 2 guaranteed at the beginning of his turn. So he's going to get, because of the War in Asgard, he's going to get 2. So that puts him up to 9. So he'd only have to scheme for 3, and he schemes for 2 already, plus a card. So, like, I think I've basically lost the game already. Because I can't play anything in my hand, and I can't do anything because I'm exhausted. Let's see. What can I do? I am going to discard We Are Groot, and I'm going to put Indomitable into play. I'm going to move this down here for now. And then I think that's all I'm going to be able to do right now. So I'm going to, ready? And then it's his turn. I need to draw a card, so I'm going to keep these two. I'm going to draw 3. So I got a Root Stomp and a Containment Strategy, and I am Groot. So this one's remove threat from a scheme equal to the number of growth counters. This one is deal 5 damage, and if it defeats an enemy, place a growth counter on Groot. Not today we kept, Vine Spikes we kept, and Containment Strategy is attached to a side scheme. And if you defend against an attack, remove 1 threat from the side scheme. Or 2 threat instead if you took no damage from the attack. Okay. Okay, so he's going to get 2 threat on the main scheme from his normal plus the 1 from War in Asgard, which puts him up to 9. And then he is going to attack me for 2, 3, 4 plus a boost card. And I am going to discard Containment Strategy to play Not Today to give myself plus 2 defense. So he's going to, I'm going to defend for 5. He's attacking for 4 plus 1. So he's dealing 5 damage to me. If the villain is attacking, this attack gains piercing. It already had piercing because he has piercing always right now because of flight, or not because of flight, just because of his ability. But I don't have tough right now, so that doesn't matter. So he's attacking me for 5. I defended for 5, so I take no damage. Since I took no damage, Not Today gets to remove 2 threat from a scheme. And since I took no damage, I'm going to exhaust Unflappable, which lets me draw a card. So I got an Armored Vest. And then after I defend, I'm going to discard Indomitable to ready my hero. And so the last thing that I haven't actually done yet is removing the 2 threat from here for Not Today. This says when defeated, reveal the top card of the Infinity Stone deck and swap Loki with a random set aside Loki villain. Oh, and then shoot. Okay, so he would have confused me because of this. Thankfully, that doesn't affect my ability to remove those 2 threat because Not Today is not a thwart ability. It is a defense ability. So it is removing threat from a scheme without actually thwarting. So the confuse does not stop me from doing that. And then this card would have gotten discarded. And then we're revealing a new one because of the side scheme getting defeated. And then the last thing the side scheme told us to do is to swap this Loki with a different one. Okay, so let's see which of these other Lokis we get. All right, we got this Loki, which has Stalwart, so he cannot be stunned or confused, and his attacks are bigger, and his schemes are a little bit lower. Okay. Then he is going to give us an encounter card, which is another side scheme. This one is Open the Bifrost. It says Hinder 1, so that is going to have 4 threat on it to start with, and then it has the exact same when defeated effect as the last one. But this one is giving us an extra encounter card every round instead of an acceleration icon. Okay. I'm glad that that didn't come out as a boost card, but I kind of wish it had because it had 4 boost icons on it, but I don't like the side scheme either. Okay. Well, this is really, really silly. I'm stunned and confused, and I can't. So I need to remove threat, but I can't. And I need to attack, but I can't. Oh my goodness. I think I'm gonna tap Groot to get rid of the stunned. because I have no way to thwart right now. Anyway. And then I'm going to spend 2 resources to play Root Stomp and deal 5 damage to an enemy. I only have one option right now. And then I have 1 card left in my hand that I can't play right now. So that is it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so he only gets 1 threat this time. So that brings him up to 10. Oh, I need to draw my cards. So I get, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Oh, growth counters. Awesome. I was wondering if I was going to get another copy of that. 4, 5. Okay, so Honorary Guardian, you can play on another friendly character to give them the Guardian trait, I think. Yeah, and you can give them +1 hit point. In solo, I'm just going to attach this to myself or possibly to an ally, and it'll give myself +1 hit point or in my ally +1 hit point. Got Fruition, which gives me growth counters. Hard to ignore after your hero defends against an attack and takes no damage. Exhaust it to remove a threat from the main scheme. It would have been nice to have that in play already, but that's all right. Play under any player's control +1 defense. We had that one already. And then I am Groot, remove threat equal to growth counters. Okay. Okay, so then he is attacking me for 3, 4, 5. And he's going to make me discard the top 4 cards of my deck and place 1 threat on the main scheme for each different card type discarded this way. Oh, well, if I discard 2 different types of cards, I lose because he's at 10 threat on the main scheme. Well, I probably just lost. All right. Well, we'll defend. 4, 3. Do I have any cards for defense? Just the hard to ignore that I can't play unless it's my turn. Okay, so he's attacking me for 5 plus 2 is 7 divided by, not divided by 3, minus 3. So I take 4. And then I have to discard the top 4 cards of my deck because of the time stone and place a threat on the main scheme for each different card type discarded this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's find out together if we lost. All right, I've got an event. That's 1 type. I've got an event. That's still 1 type. I've got an upgrade. That's 2. Oh, it was so close. I had 3 events and 1 upgrade. Oh, no. All right, well, that adds 2 threat. Boom, boom. 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's it. So now you can see why I wanted to put him on quote-unquote easy mode and only have to defeat 1 version of him because I did 5 damage total. Obviously, this is not the ideal situation for playing against Loki, even on his normal scenario. Groot solo can be really, really tough because of not having other players to help him out, especially when I got stunned and confused back to back. Like, I couldn't do anything. That was ridiculous. I could have been thwarting the main scheme instead of thwarting the side scheme that I got rid of, but that side scheme was just making the main scheme go faster, only by 1 per round. So I suppose I could have been thwarting the main scheme to keep that down, but there's only so much you can do. He was at 1 threat on the main scheme at the end of the first round, and he got all the way up to 7 without me having to do anything. That just happened. So I was not expecting to win this game. I did think it would take longer than 20 minutes, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. I was expecting to lose that one. The next one will be also another difficult one. and it will be Hawkeye. The hero will be Hawkeye, and the villain will be Magneto. So we're getting two of the level 5 bosses in a row. It just happens to be alphabetically two of the level 5 bosses in a row, which is just kind of nuts. But all right, so that was it for Groot versus Loki. After I'm done with the alphabetic challenge, I might come back and play Loki again as a different character because I think I've only played Loki one other time before today when we did the campaign. So I would like to try him more, just to see if I can win against him with a better situation than trying to fight him with Groot. But okay, that'll be it for this one. Like I said, Hawkeye versus Magneto will be next. So catch you on that one. Thanks, everyone.